What is up, guys? It's Daniel here. Kind of just wanted to apologize for how late this review is going out. This review probably should have been out a couple weeks ago, but I've had other things going on. I've been doing a bunch of stuff. So just wanted to say sorry for getting this review out super late. It's kind of good timing though, because the game technically came out a couple days ago on February 1st. So anyway, just want to let you guys know, and up comes the review. So what is up, guys? It is Daniel, and today we're going to be reviewing Delver, as you already saw. This is going to be my review for the month of January. I know we're a little late, as I explained before, but we're going to get right into this review. Delver, I'm not going to lie, guys, I was pleasantly surprised with what I got to experience here, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly why right now. But I know as soon as some people say this game, they're going to ask, well, what is this game? Well, Delver is a single-player, first-person action roguelike dungeon crawler where the player goes into dungeons to find equipment and loot in an attempt to find the Yithidian orb. The game was developed by Priority Interrupt and was recently released out of Early Access on February 1st, 2018, after having been in Early Access since early 2013. And while it was characterized as a dead game for a few years, it has been recently touched upon by the developers and is now a fully released game on Steam. Alright, so let's get right into the positives, and I'm going to answer the burning question that I'm sure everyone is asking right now as they're watching this review. The graphics. Honestly, guys, I think the graphics are really charming. They really add to kind of the soul of this game, especially. I never really played, I'm going to be honest, I never really played any games that had this kind of graphical style. I grew up video games. I grew up with Pirates of the Caribbean Online, which me and Mark reviewed a couple months ago. And I also grew up with RuneScape, so obviously none of these games had this kind of style. But I think the graphics are really good. It just kind of adds that kind of rustic kind of feel to the game. I know it's kind of a weird word to use, but I just think the graphics really add to the game's kind of style, and I think they're really important and they look really nice. Another positive I want to mention about this game, guys, is the music. I think the music is really, really good in this game. If you've ever seen the Indiana Jones movies, or if even ever thought about any adventuring kind of music, this is exactly what you're going to be hearing throughout this game as you go through the dungeons. I'm going to play a small clip here for you right now. So as you guys just heard, it is almost kind of like medieval in a way that it sounds, but it's really good. It really adds kind of the atmosphere of your exploring, and I really think the music is definitely a positive, and you will be enjoying yourself as you play through the game and you hear it. And now moving on to the progression positives in this game, I think there are a lot of great things about the progression system in this game. One, the way you level up, I'm not really sure how the XP technically works, but you will level up occasionally, and it's leveled up where you get to pick between certain cards. Either you want to upgrade your magic so your stabs do more damage, you want to upgrade your melee damage so that does more damage, you want to upgrade your defense so you take less damage, where you want to upgrade your speed, which lets you shoot bows faster and also run faster. Also, as well as you continue, you'll be finding better weapons, better equipment. It's really pays to look around the map. That's another positive. It really makes you feel like you need to explore, because you will find certain secrets around which will have basically full heal items, and enchanted weapons and armor, which will definitely help you as you progress throughout certain dungeons. But anyway, as I was saying, the weapons are really cool. I think it's definitely worth it to look around. And it's really great. It makes you feel like you're actually progressing, especially when you get really cool swords that do like extra damage, like +5 damage, certain things like that. They have really cool names, and that's pretty much all about the progression. And once you get all those awesome new weapons and abilities that you get from leveling up, now we got to talk about the combat in the game. This is also a positive for me, although some people might not consider it a positive. The combat is pretty simple, as you'll be seeing throughout the gameplay. Mostly, if you have a powerful enough melee weapon, you can pretty much one-shot pretty much all the enemies in the game if you do a power attack. So what you do is you hold down your left mouse button, and then you release, and that does a power attack, or you can click left mouse button a bunch more times to do a quick attack. In my opinion, those are basically useless because you will end up getting hit by an enemy, which obviously you don't want to do. But overall, the combat is pretty refreshing. You do have stabs, bows, melee weapons, as I said before. So if you want to do like an all magic build, you can totally do that. There are definitely enough stabs around that you can use, and you can put all your upgrade points into magic, so you can do bonus damage with your stabs. So that's basically all about the combat, and the combat I think is definitely a positive. It's really, I wouldn't say engaging, but I think it's definitely refreshing, and I think it's an excellent way for combat in this game. Another thing I want to mention, guys, which is a positive, is kind of the tactical kind of feel you need going into this game. I know it sounds kind of weird. You wouldn't really ever expect it to be kind of tactical in this kind of game, just kind of the way it looks. But you really do need to have some tactical approach going in. You can't fully stack your inventory with only melee weapons and then not have any healing items. So inventory management, although I always hate inventory management. Guys, I'm a loot whore. I never want to drop anything. If I see that staff, it has one charge left on an ability, I don't want to drop it. I might need that eventually. But I think the inventory management definitely adds to the effect of this game. Definitely makes it feel more tactical, because you will need to be managing your inventory. So sometimes you might need to drop that melee weapon that you might want to use, especially because, another positive, weapons also break. So I only found this out around the middle of the game, or during my play experience. I had a sword and I was in the middle of attacking a couple zombies, and my sword broke. So that's another tactical kind of thing. You will need to keep spare melee weapons on hand, because your melee weapons can break, and you definitely don't want to be, stranded without a melee weapon in the middle of a combat situation. So just some more with that. I think those are some more positives. They also really add to the kind of feel of the game, and that's about it. Finally, guys, I also want to add for another positive, these are randomly procedurally generated dungeons, so what you're seeing in my gameplay won't be the exact same as what you have, which I think is really important, because obviously if you're playing the same dungeon over and over again, it's not going to be very exciting. I wouldn't think so. So that's also pretty important. So it adds a bunch of replayability if you definitely want to keep playing this game, if you have fun doing it. Personally, I was very surprised when I started playing this game. I thought this was going to not be a very exciting game. I didn't think it was going to be very fun. I was definitely wrong about this. I had a lot of fun playing this game. And I think that's about wraps up the positive, guys, and we're going to move on to the neutral. Alright, guys, so we're moving on to the neutrals now. I don't have that many neutrals. That could be a blessing or a curse, depending on the way you see it. Here, it's a blessing. It's good. Even these neutrals, really, they aren't that important. One neutral thing I have is a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stabs around. And while I mentioned stabs earlier in the combat portion, I think there are maybe too many, because stabs can kind of be overpowered. It is kind of, if you charge it up, it is kind of like a one-shot to most scrub enemies. So that's one complaint that I have, is that there might be too many, especially when you get to upgraded stabs. They can have almost like 60 charges in the magic missile category. So that's one thing I just wanted to point out. There might be a little bit of a balance issue regarding stabs, and that can be really important depending on the way you want to play the game. The last neutral I have about this game, guys, there's only two I know, is that speed. The speed skill, I think, is kind of, I think it's kind of balanced a little weirdly, because speed is really critical to this game, and it's also going to be very annoying, because obviously you want to protect yourself, so you want to get better armor, but the problem is your speed skill will severely tank, especially when you get scale mail and some of the stuff that I had later in the game. But your speed skill will become very low, and you will move very, very slowly. And it kind of defeats the point of having heavy armor, because obviously if you have heavy armor, you most likely want to do melee, which is what I did. But you can't really do melee, because some of the wizards, especially the green wizards, will just run away from you. And you can't really fight them when you're moving really slowly. So that's just kind of one disconnect I think the game has, because if you want heavy armor, you have to go slow speed, and obviously you don't want to have slow speed, because then you won't be able to go fast, and you will be at a disadvantage fighting certain enemies. And so I just wanted to point that out. Okay, guys, now we're going to be moving right on to the negatives in this game. There are only a few, so let's get right into them. So my first complaint about this game is about the story. I know it sounds kind of weird. You wouldn't really expect there to be a story. But me personally, I always kind of expect there to be maybe not an excellent story, but at least kind of a story that makes sense, I guess, in a way. And this game, I know you're trying to collect an orb as you do in like the first level, and this also relates back to another negative that I have. You're kind of just thrown into the mix, really. You kind of start the game and you're exploring a dungeon already, or you're in the wilderness and you find the orb. But that doesn't really tell you anything because you don't really know how to play. And then when you go into your first dungeon, you get absolutely raffle stomped and you have no idea what's happening. But I think the game could definitely improve on its story. I'm not sure whether the developers are planning on continuing to update this game, seeing as it has been in early access for almost 5 years now, and they just released it fully. That's just one complaint I think I should point out, especially if you guys are thinking about buying this game. There isn't really a story per se. You're just playing it for the experience, like the dungeoneering experience. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. Also, I have some small complaints about the traps in this game. I would say a complaint about how they're pretty easy to see. But honestly, as you can see through the gameplay, I totally fall for a bunch of these, or I just step on them to see what they do. Really dumb, I know, but one complaint I have about the traps is there are certain traps, especially when you only have one way to go, and the traps will like guarantee damage you. Especially one part where I found in the game where it was a bomb trap, and the bomb would go off every time you stepped on it, but you needed to walk through there. So that's just one complaint I had. Some of the traps you almost need to sacrifice an item in your inventory to throw on the pressure pad to run across. So that's just kind of one problem I have with the traps. It can definitely be fixed with updates, so it's not really a huge deal. But I think it definitely should be looked at if the developers continue to develop this game. And finally, my last complaints are about the enemies in this game. What I want to say is that the enemies, they're largely the same. I haven't found too many different enemies. There's pretty much the melee guys, the magic guys. That's about it. That's all I've found. Skeletons, kind of like that. So a lot of them repeat the same lines over and over, obviously. And then there's a lot of enemy repeats, so you will see the same enemy several times throughout the game. And while that's not technically bad, I think I just wanted to point it out because if you're trying to get immersed with like a bunch of enemies in a dungeon, you're not really going to get that here. And also, I wanted to mention that when enemies die, sometimes they can get stuck on like boxes or something, so their bodies could be floating above the ground. That might be a little bit of an immersion breaker for certain people. It wasn't that big of a deal for me, but I just wanted to point it out because certain people might be annoyed by that. Yeah. So overall, guys, what are my opinions on Delver? Well, overall, Delver is a surprisingly good game. Addicting, exploring roguelike gameplay, along with excellent sound design and music style, all combined together to create an excellent dungeon exploring game. And although it may lack an engaging story, Delver makes up for its shortcomings in its combat and gameplay. And in my opinion, even if the game goes without developer support from now, it is strong enough to be able to stand on its own feet in the gaming world. And taking that all into account, guys, I'm going to be issuing Delver a 9 out of 10. And while that might seem surprisingly high to some people who don't really expect a game like this in this genre to do so well these days, I think it definitely earns its score through its combat, its music, its gaming style, the way you have to play it, and especially the graphics, which I think are definitely a risk in this day and age. So thank you guys for watching this review. If you want to see more, definitely check out me and Mark's website. But this has been Daniel, and I will see you guys in the next review. So